I like the take that you bring us on ownership because it's so unique, right? Steve Cohen has put a stamp on this game in terms of his personality and how gung ho he is. So he hasn't spoken much lately. I'm sure he's pissed off. What do you think he's thinking, and what could happen if the Mets keep spiraling like this?
Actually, Scott, the article just asks, what is he thinking? Because I don't know what he's thinking. And I do know that he has to be frustrated that his team is 3 games under 500, 8.5 games out of first place, in the middle of a 6 game losing streak, including 3 straight losses in Atlanta to their arch rival. Each in a game, they led by 3 runs. First time in Mets history that has happened, leading by 3 runs in 3 straight games, 3 or more, and then losing all 3. So it seems that this team, especially now with Alonso seemingly headed for the injured list, could be reaching something of a crossroads, if not a breaking point. And that is the question I posed. What is Cohen going to do? This is a circumstance in which we often see managers fired. This is a circumstance in which the GM comes into question. And yet, at the same time, and I didn't get into this much in this article, but I probably should have, this team's payroll was driven by Cohen. Their desire to have star pitching, Scherzer and Verlander, driven by Cohen. I'm sure Billy Eppler was in on those decisions too, but these are ownership decisions to sign pitchers like that. Now, his rationale, and it wasn't a bad one, was I've got to patch the team a little bit like the Dodgers did in the early 2010s until the farm system is ready to start spitting out players and balance the payroll and all of that. I get it. But the team is not playing nearly to expectations. Lindor is not what he should be. Jeff McNeil is not what he should be. I can go right down the line. And, of course, Verlander and Scherzer, the team was built for them to be dominant, and they have not been for the most part. At times, Max, yes. At times, Justin, yes. But both of them in this series gave it up. So there are a lot of problems here. And I'm not sure firing the manager is the answer. It was the answer in Philadelphia last year. I get it. And certainly there are times when a team simply needs a change for change's sake. That's okay if you want to think that way, but the Mets still have the problem in the rotation that I just described, the older starters. They are still a team that offensively has disappointed. Entering last night, when they did score 10, they were 20th in the league in runs per game, and they have a bullpen out Edwin Diaz that probably was not fortified enough. So it's one thing after another. I don't know how it gets solved. And what I am saying in this column is this is the first real test for Steve Cohen. How does he react? Does he react like a modern day Steinbrenner, or does he take a more patient approach, or is it somewhere in between? I don't know. We're going to find out.
Ken, do you think this is? I mean, you kind of hinted on it a little bit. It's not really something that Steve Cohen could just throw a bunch of money at to make go away. Are there any roster moves to your knowledge? Are there any other guys in AAA or something that could kind of create a spark for this team? They did score 10 runs. Their offense is doing enough to win games sometimes, but it can't do anything if the pitching's giving up more than 10. What kind of roster moves would you see happening that might change it a bit, change their trajectory?
They basically brought up their kids. Ronnie Mauricio, I believe, is the next one, and he is hurt right now at AAA, if I'm not mistaken. So he is not an option at this moment. Mark Vientos is on the team, and a lot of fans believe he should be DHing over Vogelback, and maybe that's one thing you could do for starters. But in terms of what they might get and what they might get back, well, Quintana at some point comes back. Maybe Edwin Diaz comes back, but there isn't a lot of flexibility here. This isn't a situation where you can just bring up 3 guys to the minors. There's no Ellie De La Cruz coming. And they've got some good young players. Francisco Alvarez has done a great job. Beatty's kind of tapered off, I know, but at the same time, he's looking like a good player. And Vientos might prove the same. So they actually have pulled the levers that they needed to pull with regard to their roster. They simply need to play better. And without Alonso, assuming he does go on the injured list, as reports indicated this morning, it gets that much tougher. Because one of the questions I had about this team coming into the year, and actually one of the questions Steve Cohen had, was, is there enough power? If you remember, when they tried and failed to complete a deal with Carlos Correa, or backed out of a deal with Carlos Correa, initially Cohen said, I felt like we needed one more bat. Well, they never got the bat after they lost Correa, understandably so. It was so late in the offseason. But I had that fear going into the year. and they have a lineup that should be more productive than it is, of course. But outside of Alonso, where is the pop? That was always a concern of mine and a concern, more importantly, of other people in the industry. And it's kind of come to fruition.